Welcome to a channel that doesn't just teach English, it transforms you. If you believe language can change your life, hit subscribe now, because what you're about to hear will change the way you speak, think, and exist in English forever. Imagine this: you've been studying English for years. You know the grammar, you know the words, you've watched hundreds of videos. But still, something feels off. Every time you speak, it sounds practiced, careful, a little bit robotic, as if your voice still belongs to the classroom. And that tiny hesitation in your tone? That's not just grammar. That's fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of sounding like a student. But here's the truth no one told you. You don't need to learn more English, you need to unlearn the habits that make you sound like a student. Because real fluency doesn't begin when you memorize words, it begins when you become natural. When you stop trying to speak perfectly and start speaking freely, something magical happens. Your sentences flow, your voice sounds alive, and your thoughts finally breathe. You stop performing and start being. Think about it: when a native speaker talks, they're not calculating, not translating, not chasing grammar rules. They're simply living the language. Their words are not separate from who they are who they are. And that's exactly where your transformation begins today. Let's strip away everything that keeps you trapped in student mode. Let's rewire your brain for real fluency. Because from this moment, your goal is no longer to sound correct. Your goal is to sound natural. The difference? A student waits for permission to speak. A natural speaker creates conversation. A student focuses on words. A natural speaker focuses on connection. A student thinks about how they sound. A natural speaker thinks about what they feel. You've probably noticed this: when you speak your native language, you don't think about tenses, articles, or pronunciation. You simply speak. But in English, something changes. You start doubting every word. You start building sentences in your head before you open your mouth. You translate. You hesitate. You freeze. And the more you think, the less natural you sound. That's not your fault. It's the system you grew up in. The education system taught you English as a subject, not as an experience. You were trained to pass exams, not to express emotion. You were rewarded for accuracy, not for authenticity. But life doesn't reward accuracy. It rewards energy, emotion, confidence. And that's why you can know everything about English, yet still feel stuck at the beginner's door. Let me tell you what fluent people really do differently. They trust their instincts. They don't chase every rule, they ride the rhythm of conversation. They know when to pause, when to smile, when to emphasize. Their words carry energy, not just information. You can learn all the grammar you want, but if your energy is uncertain, people will feel it. And when your energy is powerful, your words don't even need to be perfect, people will feel you before they understand you. That's what speaking naturally really means. It's not about accent. It's not about imitation. It's about alignment. When your voice, thoughts, and emotions move in one flow, your English becomes alive. Now think of a moment when you were deeply emotional, maybe angry, maybe inspired, maybe in love. Remember how words came out effortlessly in your native language? That's the state we're building, but in English. Because when you feel before you speak, fluency becomes natural. You see, English isn't just vocabulary, it's vibration. Each word carries rhythm, tone, and color. But when you study English like math, you kill that rhythm. You become a student of rules instead of a speaker of feelings. That's why I'm telling you, stop trying to sound correct. Start trying to sound alive. Because the world doesn't need another perfect speaker. It needs a real one. Someone who speaks with emotion. Someone who sounds like themselves, not like a textbook. The people who sound natural in English aren't always the most educated. They're the most expressive. They listen, they respond, they flow. And that's what makes them magnetic. So right now, ask yourself: do I want to be a student of English, or do I want to live it? If you choose to live it, here's what happens next. Every English conversation becomes a gym for your confidence. Every sentence becomes a heartbeat of growth. You stop asking, "Is this right?" and start feeling, "Does this sound me?" That's the beginning of real fluency. It's not memorized. It's embodied. So, before you move to part 2, take this moment to breathe. Say a simple sentence out loud right now. I speak English with confidence. Say it again, louder this time. I speak English with confidence. That vibration you feel in your chest? That's not just sound. That's transformation. That's the moment your brain starts believing. Because English fluency isn't about perfection, it's about permission. You're giving yourself permission to sound human, not flawless. Permission to sound expressive, not academic. Permission to sound real. From this point forward, every time you speak English, imagine this. You're not repeating after a teacher, you're expressing who you are. You're not performing, you're connecting. You're not trying to sound like a native speaker, you're sounding like you, but in English. That's power. That's freedom. That's fluency. And that is where your transformation begins. That's where your transformation begins, not in a classroom, not in a textbook, but inside your mindset. Because the way you think in English is the way you will speak in English. For years, you've been told to study more, practice harder, learn new vocabulary. But nobody told you the truth. Fluency is not built through repetition, it's built through identity. When you say, "I'm learning English," your brain places you in student mode. You see yourself as someone who is trying. Someone who is not there yet. Someone who is less. But when you say, "I speak English," your brain rewires itself. It no longer treats English as something outside of you, it becomes something within you. That's the shift we're going to create right now, from learning to living. You've spent years preparing for English. It's time to be English. When you walk into a room, don't think, "Can I speak correctly?" Think, "Can I express myself clearly?" Don't focus on the structure, focus on the story. Don't chase words, chase meaning. When people listen to you, they're not counting your grammar mistakes. They're reading your energy. And energy never lies. If you sound uncertain, even perfect grammar won't save you. If you sound confident, even broken English becomes powerful. Because language isn't just sound, it's emotion made audible. Imagine two people saying the same line. "I'm happy to see you." One says it flat, like a textbook. The other says it with warmth, with light in their eyes. Which one feels real? Which one would you remember? That's the difference between a student and a natural. Students speak to be correct. Naturals speak to connect. And connection always wins. That's why, from now on, your English practice must be alive, full of breath, tone, and body language. Because communication is 7% words and 93% how you deliver them. You can memorize vocabulary lists forever, but until you learn to move your energy through your words, you'll always sound mechanical. Let's change that right now. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. Imagine you're in a conversation with someone you respect, maybe a mentor, maybe a friend, maybe someone who inspires you. You're not nervous. You're calm. You're engaged. You speak, and they listen. You're not worried about mistakes, because your words flow from clarity, not fear. That's what speaking naturally feels like. It's freedom in expression. You don't earn it through perfection. You earn it through presence. Most people study English like they're collecting coins, one word at a time, waiting until they have enough. But fluency doesn't come from collecting, it comes from connecting. It's not about how much English you know, it's about how deeply you live it. When you read English, read with curiosity. When you listen to English, feel the rhythm, not just the meaning. When you speak English, speak with intention. Because every language carries its own energy, and English has its own music. You can hear it in movies, in songs, in conversations. It's not just what people say, it's how they say it. They rise, they fall, they pause, they play. That rhythm is what makes their English sound alive. You've heard people say learn pronunciation, but pronunciation is just the shape of sound. What you really need to learn is the feeling behind the sound. Say this sentence out loud. I can do this. Now say it again, but imagine you truly believe it. Your tone changed, didn't it? That's fluency. Because true fluency starts where fear ends. When you remove fear, what remains is flow. And when you flow, your English becomes effortless. The biggest mistake English learners make is trying to perform English instead of owning it. They speak to impress. But natural speakers? They speak to express. And expression always wins. You don't have to sound like an American or British person to be natural. You just have to sound authentic. Your natural accent, your natural emotion, that's your power. If you imitate others, you'll sound practiced. If you express yourself, you'll sound real. And real always connects. You see, the brain doesn't care about language, it cares about patterns. When you repeat something with emotion, your brain locks it in. That's why songs are easier to remember than vocabulary lists. Emotion creates memory. So the next time you want to practice English, don't just repeat sentences. Act them. Feel them. Perform them like you mean them. Say it as if your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Your communication is your life. Every opportunity, every relationship, every success you'll ever have will start with how you speak. And English is your bridge to that world. So stop holding yourself back with hesitation. You've already learned enough. You just need to let it live through you. Every time you stop yourself from speaking, remember this. Fluency doesn't belong to the fearless. It belongs to the willing. Those who are willing to sound imperfect. Those who are willing to sound human. Those who are willing to try again. Because confidence is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep speaking even when fear is loud. That's what separates the fluent from the frozen. The fluent ones keep going. They make mistakes, they laugh, they adjust. They don't wait to feel ready. They create readiness by doing. So let me ask you again, what's really stopping you from speaking like a natural? It's not grammar. It's not accent. It's permission. Give yourself permission to speak freely. To express, not impress. To communicate, not calculate. Every time you open your mouth, remember, you're not here to sound perfect, you're here to sound alive. And when your voice carries life, it carries connection. When it carries connection, it carries respect. When it carries respect, it carries influence. And that influence is the heart of true fluency. So today, stop trying to sound like a student. Start sounding like someone who belongs in English. Because you do. You've worked too hard, studied too long, practiced too much to keep hiding behind fear. You deserve to sound confident. You deserve to sound real. You deserve to sound like you. And trust me, the world is waiting to hear your version of English. Because the most natural English is not perfect, it's personal. It carries your voice, your emotion, your history, your truth. So let's make a deal from this moment on, no more hesitation, no more waiting for the right time. Every time you speak English in your mirror, with friends, online, anywhere, do it with intention. You're not practicing English. You're living English. Because the difference between sounding like a student and sounding like a natural is not skill, it's state. The state of being free, open, expressive, unapologetic. And when you enter that state, you don't need to try to sound fluent. You simply are. Fluency is not a talent, it's a state of mind. And to reach that state, you must first reprogram how your brain feels about English. Because if your mind still believes English is difficult, formal, or something you must prepare for, you will always speak like a student. But the day your brain starts believing that English is your language, that it belongs to you, that's the day your accent softens, your tone flows, your hesitation fades, and your words begin to dance. See, your brain doesn't respond to words, it responds to beliefs. If deep down you believe, my English is not good enough, your brain will filter every word through insecurity. You'll speak slower. You'll overthink. you'll lose rhythm. But if your belief changes to, I belong in this language, your brain relaxes. It lets go of over-control. It lets your natural instincts rise. That's why children learn languages faster. They don't overthink their identity. They play with words. They explore. They feel safe making mistakes. But adults? Adults fear judgment. And fear is the enemy of fluency. Let's destroy that fear right now. Because fear doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. It keeps your voice trapped behind the bars of, what if I sound wrong? But remember, no one in the real world is counting your mistakes. They're feeling your energy. If you speak with honesty, clarity, and emotion, people will remember your message, not your grammar. Think of the greatest communicators in history. Some weren't native speakers at all. But their voices carried conviction. Their words carried soul. And that's why the world listened. When you speak English, you're not showing off your knowledge. You're showing yourself. You're giving your thoughts a voice in another language. That's powerful. That's brave. So stop saying, I can't speak like them. Start saying, I can express like me. Because your English should never erase your identity, it should expand it. The biggest myth is that natural speakers don't think, they just talk. Wrong. They do think, but they think differently. They think in pictures, feelings, and reactions, not in grammar formulas. When someone says, what's up, they don't translate it word by word, they feel it as energy. That's what you need to practice. Not memorizing, but feeling the meaning. The next time you learn a phrase, don't just repeat it, visualize it. Don't just hear it, connect it to emotion. For example, if you learn I can't wait, imagine the excitement, the smile, the spark behind it. When you feel the phrase, your brain stores it differently. It becomes instinct, not information. That's how natural speakers function. They're emotionally connected to their words. Their expressions come from experience, not memory. So how do you train that kind of instinct? By practicing presence. Presence means you're not stuck in your head thinking about what to say next. You're right there, in the moment, responding. Fluency is simply the art of responding freely. The next time someone asks you something in English, don't panic about grammar. Listen, pause, and then answer from feeling. Even if your answer isn't perfect, it's real. And real communication always wins over perfect grammar. You've seen it, people with average English but magnetic confidence. You can't stop listening to them. You're drawn in. Why? Because they sound alive. That's your goal. Not to sound correct. To sound alive. To sound like someone who's not trying to speak English, but someone who lives in English. And living in English means letting it enter your daily reality. Stop separating learning time from living time. Merge them. Think in English while cooking, walking, driving. Narrate your thoughts in English. React to life in English. Because fluency doesn't grow in classrooms, it grows in moments. Every good morning, every thank you, every how was your day, is your fluency training. Every time you listen, respond, and feel something in English, your brain is rewiring. You're not just learning, you're reprogramming. And that's why natural speakers never worry about being fluent, they've made English emotional. If you attach emotion to every word you speak, your English becomes unstoppable. You'll never forget emotional language. You'll never hesitate to say what you feel. Because emotions bypass fear, they go straight to instinct. When you're angry, you don't hesitate. When you're excited, you don't rehearse. When you're passionate, you don't translate. That's what natural fluency feels like, pure, expressive energy. Let's do a small test right now. Say this sentence out loud. I'm ready to speak like myself. Now again, louder. I'm ready to speak like myself. Did you feel that small vibration in your voice? That's confidence forming. And confidence is not built by speaking perfectly. It's built by speaking consistently. Every time you speak English, your mind becomes a little freer. Every time you choose to respond instead of freeze, your instincts sharpen. You're building mental muscle. Speaking like a natural is like going to the gym of communication. Every conversation is a rep. Every mistake is a rep. Every time you express instead of holding back, another rep. You can't think your way to fluency, you have to feel your way into it. Because English is not a subject, it's a state. It's the state where words flow, fear fades, and expression takes over. And here's the secret. When you enter that state often enough, your brain rewires itself automatically. It creates faster neural pathways. It starts predicting patterns. It becomes fluent by design. You'll start noticing something magical. The sentences that used to take effort will start forming naturally. The pauses will get shorter. Your reactions will get sharper. And people will start saying, "Wow, you sound different." That's not just language. That's transformation. Because fluency is not about how much you know. It's about how much you allow. Allow yourself to speak freely. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to sound human. Because fluency is not the reward for perfection, it's the reward for courage. The courage to keep speaking when you want to stop. The courage to keep expressing when fear whispers not yet. The courage to choose voice over silence. And once you cross that line from hesitation to flow, there's no going back. Your English will no longer sound like a student's. It will sound like you. The world doesn't need more people who speak perfectly. It needs people who speak truthfully. Who sound real. Who sound alive. So from today, don't chase fluency, chase freedom. Because when you're free in your voice, you're fluent in your life. That's the transformation we're building together, one fearless sentence at a time. You've already started to feel it, haven't you? That quiet shift inside you. The moment your mind stops asking, "Is this right?" and starts whispering, "This feels natural." That's fluency. It doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives in silence, in that second when you stop doubting your words. Because the truth is, sounding natural isn't about perfect grammar, it's about perfect presence. It's when you stop standing outside your words, judging them, and finally live inside them. Think about how you speak your first language. There's no translation, no fear, no checking. You flow. That's what English wants from you too, not control, but connection. So let's go deeper. Let's talk about what really makes you sound like a native, even when you're not. It's rhythm. It's energy. It's confidence in imperfection. You see, natives don't sound native because they use complex vocabulary, they sound that way because they use their voice like music. Every sentence rises, falls, breathes. They don't just speak English, they perform it. And you can too. When you speak, don't just say the words. Play them. Feel the rhythm of what you're saying. English has a heartbeat. Find it. Say this sentence aloud. "I didn't mean to say that." Now again, but let the emotion lead the tone. "I didn't mean to say that." See? Same words, new life. That's how native speakers sound natural. They use stress, tone, and emotion like paintbrushes. When you say a sentence, ask yourself, what's the emotion here? Curiosity? Surprise? Disbelief? Then paint your voice with that feeling. Because sounding like a natural isn't about sounding like someone else. It's about removing what's fake in you. When you speak English, you're not just communicating, you're revealing who you are when no one's watching. That's why your voice matters more than your vocabulary. Forget memorizing 10,000 words. Remember how it feels to mean what you say. Every word you mean deeply will stick in your memory forever. Because the brain forgets data, but it never forgets emotion. Do you remember the first time someone corrected your English and you went quiet for the rest of the day? That silence built walls around your confidence. And now, every time you speak, you still feel that invisible hand pulling you back. But here's the truth, that hand isn't real anymore. It's a memory pretending to protect you. And the moment you stop listening to it, your real voice walks in. You don't need permission to speak like a natural. You just need practice and courage. Start small. Talk to yourself out loud. Read your favorite quotes as if they're movie lines. Listen to native conversations and repeat them, not to copy, but to calibrate. Let your tongue learn the music. Let your voice find its own rhythm. Let your fear burn itself out in the sound of your own sentences. Fluency is not a goal, it's a side effect. It's what happens when courage becomes a daily habit. And when you start speaking from that place, you don't sound like a student anymore. You sound like someone who belongs. Belonging, that's the real secret of fluency. Not rules. Not repetition. It's the feeling that you are home inside the language. You can study English for 10 years and still sound unsure. Or you can feel at home in English today by trusting yourself. Because what people respond to isn't accuracy, it's authenticity. When you speak naturally, people listen differently. They stop hearing an accent and start hearing you. That's why the most powerful English speakers in the world aren't the most perfect, they're the most present. Think of the people who move you when they speak. Maybe they make mistakes. Maybe their grammar isn't perfect. But their words carry energy. That's what you're building now, energy. Real communication isn't about sound. It's about connection. And connection is born in honesty. So stop asking, how do I sound? Start asking, what do I want to say? When your message becomes more important than your fear, your fluency takes care of itself. That's the point where English stops being something you learn and becomes something you live. Because speaking like a natural is not about pretending to be native, it's about being naturally yourself in English. There's no higher level. No final exam. Just presence. Confidence. Flow. Remember, you are not learning a language. You are learning freedom. So next time you speak, don't think of it as speaking English. Think of it as expressing who you are through a new rhythm of sound. Every accent carries a story. Every pause has a meaning. Every word has power if you mean it. You don't need to erase your accent. You need to embrace it. Because your accent is proof that you're brave enough to learn something new. And that's what makes you different. That's what makes you natural. When natives hear your confidence, they won't think, oh, you're a learner. They'll think, wow, you sound alive. And that's what this journey is really about. Not sounding perfect. Sounding alive. Because perfection is cold. But real voice, real presence, it's warm. It connects. It inspires. So if your English still feels student-like, don't worry. You're just shedding layers of fear, one word at a time. Keep speaking. Keep feeling. Keep freeing yourself. Fluency isn't found in lessons. It's found in moments of courage. And you, yes, you are already closer than you think. Every time you open your mouth to speak, the student fades, and the natural begins to rise. That's your evolution. That's your power. That's your truth. And this right here, right now, is your turning point.